I just want to share a little bit about my story, my background, why I am a priest. If you ask me what is the priesthood, I have no idea. I have less idea today about what a priest is than I had when I started. I thought I knew what a priest was when I wanted to become one. And then when I started to study to become a priest, I started to realize, man, I'm not so sure. After I was ordained, I realized I had no idea. And so this is, I suppose this is how it is with marriage. You know you're in love, everything's exciting, you know what you want, you're dating, and you have less of an idea, but you're scared, and then you get married and then you have no idea. It's always the same. But this is pretty much how we work, and this is where we need to learn to trust God in our vocation, in what we do. You know, I love being a priest. I love being a priest. I didn't always want to be a priest. I only considered priesthood for the first time when I was 20 years old. Before that, I had a girlfriend. I was ready, and my dad has a business. I was ready to take that over. I had everything sorted for me, everything set out for me. Life was very comfortable. My parents were well off. You know, it was a comfortable life. Everything sorted. But then something happened in my life that turned my life around, and I just couldn't be still. You know, Meity talked about that she used to pray, God, I'll do anything, but I don't want to get married. This is pretty much the same prayer I had. I had a turnaround experience at 16. I experienced the love of God, and it threw me completely. It ruined me. It ruined my heart to the point where I just couldn't be still anymore. I fell in love with God. And when you fall in love with God, that's the most dangerous thing you can do, the most heartbreaking thing you can do. Because you let your heart become vulnerable to a God whom you don't even know, and you don't even know where to begin. You've become vulnerable to something so great that it ruins you. It does ruin you. But if I had 1,000 lifetimes, you know, I'd choose to be a priest in each one. I love being a priest. I love being a priest because I love people. I love being a priest because I love God. Now, how you live the priesthood is so different. Every priest is different. And many of the clergy in my diocese, if they think different, they think me. Because I live priesthood very differently. But it gives me a deeper understanding of what priesthood is all about. Priesthood is not about waking up at 6 in the morning, going to do morning prayer and going to celebrate Mass. This is all beautiful routine of the priesthood. But at priesthood, you become a person who is called to become Christ, as each of us are called through our baptism, through our priesthood. A bit of theology here. I'm sorry for confusing you. When I try to explain theology, I actually get confused. So you're not going to get anything too intellectual here. But you know, this is the thing. As I was saying, priesthood is something beautiful, and I love being a priest. But it comes ultimately from an experience with God. We're all called to serve God. We are all called to mission. But this mission has to come from love. It cannot come from an intellectual thing. It's about falling in love, and this is what priesthood was for me. At 16, I had the turnaround experience. I was in a very difficult place at the age of 16. But for the first time, I experienced two things. The first thing was community. A group of young people who were just so full of life and just so full of love. And I walked into this youth group, and they welcomed me, they shook my hand, and they were happy to see me. Now, my friends were never happy to see me. But these were, I don't know if it was authentic or not, but it seemed like they were happy to see me. And I wanted to be in this place. I wanted to be surrounded by these people. And their love for God also inspired me. And I wanted what they had. And so it started with that, and eventually I would hang out with this community, with this believing community, and eventually gave my life to Jesus at the age of 16. And I was never the same again. I fell in love. My heart was broken out of love for God. And I used to pray, and somehow He gave me a sense of hope, a deep hope in my heart, where I was in a hopeless place, a very sad and a very difficult place. Now, we all go through sadness. We all go through difficulty. I still go through sadness. I still go through moments of difficulties. I still go through moments where I cannot get out of bed because I'm feeling so disabled, so difficult, so hard to deal with life. But today I have something that will give me the strength to keep going, and that is hope. We die inside when we lose hope. And so I experienced this hope for the first time at 16. And I used to pray this, God, I want to serve you. I want to give this hope to other people. And I will do whatever it takes. I'll go around the world, I'll sing, I'll even dance. I have no idea how to dance. But I will do, God, I'll do whatever you want. I wanted to do whatever God wanted me to do. I wanted to give hope to young people. Today, this is what I do with my whole life. You know, from when I was 16 till I was 20, I followed God, but I didn't think about the priesthood. I just used to serve God. I started playing music at 17, give concerts by the time I was 18. 19, I started touring. I had a girlfriend. Everything was sorted, everything was beautiful, everything was wonderful. But then I was giving a concert in Europe when I was 20 years old. I was in Italy, giving this concert, and I see this priest there. Now, he was the most vain priest I've ever met in my life, until I look at myself in the mirror. But he was so full of life, he was just so full of love, and I said, God, look, I don't want to be a priest, but if I'll be anything like this guy, I'll consider it. And so I became friends with this guy, and I started to hang out, and we had conversation. I would spend 3 months a year, all my summer holidays, with him, just to be inspired by him. Now, I was studying at university, entered university at 17, read for a degree in commerce. I was ready to start doing business. But this guy started, I wanted to be like this guy. Even though I had my girlfriend, I just wanted to be so inspirational to others. Not necessarily a priest, but I wanted to be inspirational like he was. But eventually I started to discern, and my heart started to soften, and I started to think, man, what if I became a priest? And I would sit down and I would pray and I would try to discern what God wanted. And finally I decided at 20, look, I'm going to give the seminary a try. The thing, it was a peaceful breakup with my girlfriend, please no. But I entered the seminary. And I wanted to, as I entered the seminary, I had a lot of fears. I was scared. God, I'm going to have to give up my music. I'm going to have to give up travel. I'm going to have to give up all of this, relationships. How am I going to survive? How am I going to survive? But eventually, you know what? I walked into those 4 walls of the seminary, and I found an incredible freedom. Because I knew I was in the right place. I knew that even if the priesthood wasn't for me, I knew I was in a place seeking God. Now, it was hard for me because, you know, particularly I love my dad. I have a really good relationship with my dad, but my dad didn't want me to become a priest. He was furious when I told him I was going to discern priesthood. And he was upset and wouldn't speak to me for a while, but eventually I entered into the seminary. When he saw that I was happy, then he started to soften. And today he's one of my greatest supports. A man who loves what I do and also loves me as a person. But you see, this is it. I had so many things to give up. It was a hard decision to become a priest, but I found freedom in that one commitment. And this is the thing, there is greater freedom in one commitment than in 1,000 options. Because very often these thousands of options, even though we have our options, take away our freedom. And so in that one commitment, when we decide to jump and to take a leap and to do it scared, even though we're scared to move forward, in that one commitment, we find freedom. I found great freedom in choosing the priesthood. Now, what is it like? A lot of a student just came up to me recently. I was at a Deb Ball, and she comes up to me, year 11 student, beautiful, beautiful spirited person. You know, she comes up and she says, listen, I feel so sorry for you. She told me, you can make a decision now when you're young that you don't want to get married, but what about 5 years time or 10 years time? Or what if you die, she told me, and you go to heaven and you realize that there's no God? And I started to think, man, how you have it sort of, how wrong it is. Your perspective is so wrong, because it's not about heaven when I die, it's about heaven now. And this is what it is, our freedom now, our hope now. I know, even if I know there is a God, but even if there is no God when I go up, I'm experiencing God now. I'm in heaven now. I have hope now. I have freedom now. I have the presence of God now. And I'm experiencing it, and I'm seeing it, and it is changing my life now. And this is the beauty of the commitment that we find in the discerning the will of God. That we can find hope. We can find the presence of God now. We can find heaven now. And we do that when we choose God, when we choose holiness, when we choose the presence of God, when we choose the will of God above our own. It is the hardest thing to do. The pain is not in dying to self. Once we're dead to self, we're dead. It doesn't matter. We die to our own will, there's no pain. The pain is in resisting to die to self. The pain is when you're standing on the plane, about to jump from the plane with your parachute. And that moment, until you decide to let go, that is the most painful moment. It is painful because you're scared of heights. What if I die? What if I'm scared I can't let go? But the minute you jump, then it's just sheer joy. It's just excitement. It's just beauty of falling and that incredible freedom. And this is what God calls us to, this freedom. I love being a priest. I would have never imagined living my priesthood the way I live it now. I live the priesthood as being myself. I am an ordained Catholic priest. But I'm not going to apologize for reaching out to the hearts of people. I will do whatever it takes. I experienced love, I experienced hope, and I experienced freedom. And I will do whatever it takes to reach to the hearts of people, and young people in particular. You know, I do things that some other people cannot understand. For example, I would write music, club music. And I'd release music for clubs. I'd record music, I'd give concerts, I'd play in pubs. I'm actually on the X Factor this year. You know, who would have thought a priest on the X Factor? And the reason I do the things I do is not because I want fame, not because I want attention. If you want fame and attention, just go and I'll just spend hours in front of Facebook and just wait for the likes to add up. That's not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is to give hope to people. And when you do that, if this is what it takes for me to be myself, for me to let go, to jump, then here I am, Lord. Here I am. And this is what we're called to, whatever our vocation is. I love, as I said, the priesthood. The priesthood is a beautiful vocation where you can be the presence of Jesus in the most beautiful moments of people's lives, like when they get married. You can be the presence of God there, administering through them the sacrament of matrimony. But also you can be with people in their deepest, their darkest moments when they're grieving and seeing the people they love dying, and you walk into the room and all of a sudden you become the hope of salvation for this person. It's not because of you, but it's because I am an ordained priest representing Christ. How awesome is that? How awesome is that? And this is what is important for me, that I represent the one I love, the one I'm madly in love with. I'm in love with Jesus, and that's whom I want to represent. This is our vocation, as I said, as priests through our baptism. We all share in the priesthood of Christ. And this is where we're called to be other Christ for other people. When we get married, what's your primary vocation? It's to make sure the other person gets to heaven. Not now, when you're upset with them, you make sure they get to heaven. But your vocation is to make sure that they eventually get to heaven. And they have to make sure that you eventually get to heaven. Your vocation is to get people into heaven. What is my vocation as a priest? To bring the bride to heaven. To bring the bride, the church, to heaven. That is my primary vocation. And I, as I said, will do whatever it takes to let that happen. People are desperate for hope. They're desperate for love. And Lord, if you can take this mess and use it, here I am. Here I am. And this is the prayer that we should all pray. God, whatever it takes, use me. Here I am. Whether it's the priesthood, whether it's married life, religious life, whatever it is, Lord, single life, here I am. I'm going to finish off with this moment in my life that was quite an impact in my life, and then we'll go straight to a time of prayer, and this will connect with the prayer. And there was a time when I was studying for the priesthood, and I was in the chapel. There was a chapel next door to my room, and I was so honored to have the chapel next door to my room. And so I'd go into the chapel at night when everyone was asleep, and I'd walk into the chapel, and there was a tabernacle, and I'd walk to the tabernacle, and I'd knock at the tabernacle, and I'd say, Jesus, I'm here. And then just one day I imagined someone knocking back, I'm here, and I'd freak out. But this was, I used to do that every day, and I'd just knock, and I'd sit, and then I'd rest my head against the tabernacle. After that, I would kneel down, and I'd stay there, and I'd just speak to the Lord. But one day I was sitting there, I was kneeling down there, and this may be strange to some of you, but I want to try and explain what my vocation and your vocation is. I was kneeling down there quiet, praying, and as I was praying, I see this sort of vision, this picture of Jesus on the cross in a distance. And as I'm looking at this cross, miles and miles away, I'm walking in my imagination towards the cross. And as I'm walking towards the cross, I look closer at the cross. And as I'm closer to the cross, I see Jesus on this cross. And I approach the cross, and I look at Jesus, and I say, Jesus, in my imagination again, I say, Jesus, what do you want? Because he's looking at me in a way, saying, Rob, give me. And I'm saying, Jesus, what do you want? And he looks at me again, and he says, Rob, give me. And I'm saying, Lord, I have nothing to give you. I have nothing to give you. Here I am. What am I going to give you? And then all of a sudden, again, in my imagination, he takes his hand down from the cross, and he places his hand on his heart, and he takes his heart into his hands, and he holds out his heart towards me. And he's holding his beating heart towards me, and he says, Rob, give me. And I'm saying, Lord, what do you want me to give you? You are offering me your heart, and you're saying, Rob, give me. Well, it doesn't make sense. And so I stop there for a moment, and I decide to do the same. I reach for my heart, and I reach my heart out towards Jesus' heart. And I touch my heart with his heart. Now, there were two things that I noticed at that moment. The first thing was I got a shock, because his heart was so warm. That means my heart was so cold, and I didn't realize it. It was only when we touched my heart with his heart that I realized my heart was cold. The second thing that I realized was that his heartbeat was beating at a different beat to my heart. And he looked at me again, and this again in my imagination, you always remember that. He looked at me again, he says, Rob, give me. And I said, Lord, what am I going to give you? What am I going to give you? And he looks at me, and for a moment I realize that he's saying, Rob, give me your heartbeat. Are you willing to give up your heartbeat? And I look at Jesus and I say, Jesus, yes, yes, I'm willing. I'm willing. And all of a sudden, my heartbeat stops, and all we hear is one heartbeat. And at this moment, just to bring you back to the chapel, there's a puddle in front of me. I'm crying and crying and crying, because I'm experiencing this love of God and this warmth of God's heart, and the heartbeat. I can hear the heartbeat of God. And I look at Jesus, I say, Jesus, there's one heartbeat. There's your heartbeat. And he says, Rob, listen. And there are two heartbeats, but they're beating together. Two heartbeats beating together. And all of a sudden, he takes his heart and he pulls his heart away. I'm thinking, no, don't. I need your heartbeat. I need your presence there. And he takes his heart and he puts his heart back. And I put my heart back. And he tells me, Rob, go down. Go down. And I don't want to leave that place. I don't want to leave the foot of the cross. I don't want to leave the presence of God. But I go down. And then I'm praying, God, what am I going to do? What if my heart goes out of sync, out of beat? But he told me, this is what I felt he was saying, this is what I want from your life. I want you to go down the mountain, and I want you to take a microphone, figuratively speaking, and place it on your heart. And when they hear your heartbeat, they're going to hear my heartbeat. And when they hear my heartbeat, they can sense my heart beating out of love for them. This is our vocation. This is the priesthood. This is the ministerial priesthood, to be done ministerially as a priest does, but also each and every one of our vocations. Spending time with God, falling in love with God, letting our heart beat with His. What if they go out of sync? We have the most beautiful, the most powerful defibrillator, and that is called the sacrament of reconciliation. Where every time we go to reconciliation, we go to the sacraments, our hearts, boom, get back in sync with the heartbeat of God. The sacrament of the Eucharist, where our heart is warmed and nourished and strengthened. God has given us the grace. It's us who have to say yes, and say, God, yes, I will pray. God, yes, I will listen. God, yes, I will go. Where you lead me, I will go. I will choose the one commitment and turn my back on the 1,000 options, so that I can be a person who is holy and a person called to mission. So I'm going to sing this song, which is a song written out of that moment, out of that experience. Yeah. And this song is a song about being there at the foot of the cross. And I ask you, even at this moment, as I sing this song, just let this be your prayer, a time of prayer. Just imagine yourself at the foot of the cross, where Jesus is offering His heart to you. We have a choice to reach our heart out to God and say, God, here's my heart. Or we can just stay.
Voices calling out your name, bringing joy, other sorrow, but all is pointless when you're alone. Striding, wounded and forsaken, shattered by your guilt and shame, lost, isolated. Oh, soul, my soul, I need a Savior. So come see, come rest, wherever you are. Come broken, however you are. He calls your name, whoever you are. There's room for you at the foot of the cross.
give us this grace to say yes to you. Wherever we are, wherever we're from, whatever we're going through, Lord. We're all gathered here at the foot of your cross, invited to reach our hearts towards yours. Lord, we pray for courage and strength to let go, to say yes. Lord, even though 1,000 options surround us, let us say yes to what you're calling us to. Give us ears to hear and a heart of surrender. Just a couple of moments. I think we're going to have some question and answer, but I just want to give you this answer, this opportunity to understand that very often the thing that stops us from surrendering to God is fear. The thing that stops us from saying yes to God is thinking that there's going to be someone on the other side who's going to tell us what we should do and should not do. But it's all about love. It's all about God saying, hey, I love you. And the reason why I call you is because I love you. Because I want to give you hope. I want to give you a future. I want to give you the opportunity to experience the joy of sharing this hope with others. Where can I run? Where can I hide? Your love will always find me. Darkness and light, your love will shine. You're always there beside me. Are the way, your words are true. I live my life to know you, and I lay it all down just to be found. Fill me up to overflow.
Amen.